What's going on, YouTube? Ferocity here. Hope you guys are doing well. The second weekend of the Battlefield 6 beta is here. And as much as I want to talk about the new game modes or talk about what I'm looking forward to with the second weekend of the beta, we have to talk about some of the most pressing pieces of criticism that I'm seeing within the Battlefield community. And two things come to mind right off the bat. The open weapon selection that is available for multiple game modes in the Battlefield 6 beta, and the maps. And I want to start first with the open weapon selection. For those of you that don't know, there are two options for game modes like Conquest and Breakthrough. Both of those game modes offer open, which is the general matchmaking that you'll see when you open up the Battlefield 6 beta, and closed. And the closed matchmaking means that each class type is locked with what type of weapons you can use. The assault class gets ARs, the engineers get SMGs, the recon gets snipers, and the support class gets LMGs. And if you've been playing the open, you've probably been using ARs or SMGs for any class all willy-nilly. And that's not how Battlefield has typically been played. Now, this isn't a surprise to the community because this was announced a long time ago, but it is something that has been heavily scrutinized within the Battlefield community because people don't call it legitimate Battlefield or traditional Battlefield. And I get that. And I sympathize and empathize with the idea that what they're doing is a mistake. Because if you're trying to get people excited about Battlefield and you want them to play the authentic experience, it should be a closed system. And I'm not against a closed system. I've played both the open and the closed. I don't really notice too much of a difference. I know that some people get upset that assault classes are running around with snipers and support classes are running around with ARs. That's me. And I get it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say that I want the entire system to be opened. No, I actually think what Battlefield has done here is the smart decision, allowing both options to the players. That type of variety is going to allow players to play a little bit more run and gun if they're a support, run around with an AR instead of an LMG. And then when they want to play a more traditional support role, they'll go to the closed system. They'll go to the closed playlist, and that's fine. And I think having both is better than just having one or the other. You can still play closed Conquest. It's no different than any other Battlefield game. It's the authentic experience. It's the traditional experience. So just go play that. I really think that this debate is silly, especially when you look at EA's motivations here, right? The reason why they made this decision, the reason why they opened up the weapon classes and the gun selection is because they want to attract as many players as possible. EA wants 100 million players. I don't think you're going to be able to entice enough players if you continue with the closed system. That's just my personal opinion. You can disagree or agree with me. Totally fine. So let's move on to the maps, because I feel this is a massive sticking point for the community, as a lot of people have been criticizing these maps. And right out of the gate, I will say that I don't like the way these maps look. It's a lot of browns, it's a lot of grays. I would like to see more color injected into them. And I know that's a lot to ask from a Battlefield game that's trying to sell immersion, but I'd like just a little bit more than browns and grays, and it decreases visibility as well of enemy players. It still needs to be a video game where you can spot enemies. I don't want them to pop out at the screen, but I think they should be easier to see. It's just my perspective. I know my eyes are getting old, so maybe it's a me problem. Regardless, that's kind of my preliminary thought. But the consensus piece of criticism that I keep reading is that the Battlefield maps are like Call of Duty maps. And man, there are two different ways to look at this. The first way is how I think a lot of people in the Battlefield community are taking this, by saying that the Battlefield maps are so small, they're reminiscent of Call of Duty maps, which in my opinion is kind of a lazy way to look at this argument and is completely false. Because it doesn't take much to know that Battlefield 6's maps are much larger than Call of Duty's maps. Like the most popular Call of Duty map right now, Stakeout, is the size of a conquest point. Like that's how small those maps are. So to compare them as apples to apples is incorrect. But where I think this criticism holds some weight and has some merit is when we look at the encounters that you have in Battlefield 6. A lot of the map design lends itself to creating more close quarter battles. So when you engage with players, it's going to be in tight corridors. Instead of being able to diversify the gameplay experience and have snipers and have LMG players lay down suppression fire, it really leads to ARs versus SMGs, which is very reminiscent of how Call of Duty operates. And this is where I think a lot of people's complaints actually are valid. People want to be able to have the diversification of everything that's available to you in Battlefield. Have the pros and cons of every class system, and maybe this is why they're getting rid of classes, is because to compete in the majority of these maps, you need to run an AR or SMG because LMGs and snipers just aren't viable, and that's not Battlefield. You should be able to have a little bit of everything and still have it be impactful. Like if you want to be a support player that lays down suppression fire to properly close down a lane, you should be able to do that. But unfortunately, in a lot of cases, on a lot of these maps outside of Liberation Peak, for the most part, you can't do that. Because a lot of the encounters you're going to experience are going to be close quarters or like medium range. And a lot of times you're going to lose to ARs or SMGs. And that to me is a fatal flaw here of the map design. It feels that they are chasing engagements instead of trying to provide that traditional Battlefield gameplay. That's what I'm looking at it as. Now, maybe my opinion on this is going to change the more I play it, but right now, one of my favorite points in Conquest is the C point on Liberation Peak. I love that point because to me, that's sort of how Battlefield operates, right? Depending on what side you're capturing from, you have so many different variables to take into account. Because there's so many different types of engagements that can happen. You can have players flanking you from different sides, utilizing ARs and SMGs, and you also have to worry about suppression fire from LMGs, and of course, the dreaded snipers. So it makes you approach that point with a more tactical mindset so that you can take advantage of all these variables and put them in your favor. And then on top of it, you also have to worry about the tanks and the jets and all that other stuff, all the vehicles that are at the disposal on that map as well. And to me, that is where Battlefield truly shines. That's where BF6 is at its best. I know not everyone likes Liberation Peak, but it does have elements that I do love and why I appreciate Battlefield gameplay so much. But I just want more of that. I want more of these conquest points to feel like a battle of attrition, like a chess match where you're just moving up, inching up slowly so that you can truly take control of the map, instead of it being who can have the quickest reactions, who can clear out an area with a shotgun the most efficiently. That's not Battlefield. Yes, in certain instances, in certain encounters, that makes the most sense. Yes. But that shouldn't be how the majority of the gameplay is. And I do feel, as somebody who plays a lot more as a support player, who uses an LMG a lot, I feel that the types of engagements and the areas of the map that I'm most successful in are far fewer than they should be. I think it should be a much more viable class in a lot of areas than it is right now. And that's sort of my drawback on the maps. Don't get me wrong, I think the maps still have areas where they are great. Each map in and of itself has good elements that I like. I like the destruction. This isn't an all doom and gloom type of video, but I do want to point out that, yeah, I get the argument why they feel like Call of Duty maps. It's not the map size themselves, it's how the maps play, where a lot of your encounters are more or less close quarters, which I don't think is where Battlefield should be trying to steer their gameplay. And one final point here, yeah, the maps are smaller than traditional Battlefield maps. I don't know why they're making that decision. I hope that more maps that come out when the game fully launches are a little bit bigger, because the current maps are on the smaller side. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens there. But that's all the information I have for you guys today. I'm very curious on your takes on both the open/closed weapon system and the map design in Battlefield 6. So if you have any thoughts, any opinions, leave them down below in the comments section. And as always, guys, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button. If you want to see more videos from me, please hit that subscribe button. I'll see you guys next time.